nutrition, grass-fed, grain-fed, what's the health benefits of that. So we'll get into it. So I don't know if you guys want to both, if you'll still start with you.
Sure.
You just wanted to say a little bit about kind of your background, what you do.
Yep.
And
Yep.
then,
So my name's Henry Slachy. Was born and raised here in Oregon. My family, we started out, well, my dad started and my mom started milking cows before I was born. And that, we kind of have a dairy background coming up. And then I've just been involved in animal agriculture pretty much my whole life. And about 7, 8 years ago, I guess, my wife and I started a little beef herd off some dairy cross calves that we picked up and raised, and kind of just evolved that into kind of fast tracked it, doing some embryo work and getting a base herd of cows built up. And we've since been just trying to build genetics, build cattle that last a test of time, can, grow right and perform in the Willamette Valley, Oregon, which is probably not cow country. Little wet, little soggy, good grass about 2 months out of the year. Everybody thinks this is the grass growing area of the world, but anyways, that's a whole other topic. But you got to have cattle that can eat dead grass through June, July, August, and maintain calves and all that. But anyways, we started building a herd of beef cows probably 7, 8 years ago, and we have now right around 60 pairs, 65 pair, I guess. And just continually trying to grow off that and make some good cattle. So that's what we've been doing so far. So,
good. Yeah. Thanks for coming on.
you bet.
My name's Trey Leckby, and my family and I run a family-owned and operated ranch in Southwest Washington. We provide consumers with quality meat, specifically beef, pork, and lamb, all over the Pacific Northwest. And we prioritize our customer service, the care for our animals, as well as the quality of our products. So, and then we're always trying to answer any questions that we can, and just kind of inform everybody of the benefits of animal meat for a source of your protein.
All right. So I don't know. I got like 9 questions, and there's probably a lot more. And I don't know how long you guys want to do this. So we'll just go until you guys want to quit, I guess. So
Just wing it.
yeah, just wing it.
If we don't have the answer, can we Google it?
Yeah. If you have your phone with you,
Can we phone a friend?
yeah, do whatever you want. So and none of these are in order, and I'm not so my experience with beef is grilling, right? So I just buy it from the store or buy it from a local farmer and grill it. So I don't, as far as raising beef, I don't really know any of that, but I just know how to grill. So these questions aren't in order, but we'll start off with that first topic you guys were talking about, the difference between grass-fed and grain-fed.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I know we could probably use up this whole time just talking about that.
You get pretty deep on that.
Yeah, but I guess just so I want this to kind of be just like informative for somebody that's just
Absolutely.
watching or listening, that doesn't really know. They just go to the grocery store
Sure.
and buy beef.
Wonder why that one costs more.
Yeah, I wonder why.
We talked about that a little.
Yeah, so if you, we'll just start with you. If you just want to say a little bit about
Sure.
that.
So grass-fed versus grain-fed,
Yeah.
or a combination.
Or your opinion, and then your opinion on it.
Well, I kind of have an interesting opinion, I guess. I don't necessarily think one would be better than the other. That wouldn't be a topic of choice for me. I think there's a battle of efficiency and maybe taste and a combination of things that people are looking for in meat. So I would say, I think from an efficiency standpoint, in certain geographical areas, I bet if you're in the South, maybe in parts of Montana where the grass is good for 6, 7, 8 months out of the year, or you have irrigated pasture or something like that, why grass-fed might grow and be as efficient as grain-fed. I think from the standpoint of raising cattle in a scenario like most are in, whether that's a confined animal or something like that, I think grain-fed's probably a little bit more efficient. Maybe not in certain geographical parts of the world, but taste-wise, I've ate both. I grew up eating both. They both have a significant flavor difference, I would say. I think grass-fed's leaner, probably. So if you're after like super lean type stuff, it can be that way depending on what time of the year they're butchered and what exactly is there for legume or grass. Or we were talking with Don about different forages on grass. I think both work. I think it's just a matter of preference or what you have access to, I guess. I think both are fine.
Both fine. So on grass fed, would the meat be stringier on that?
You know, I haven't noticed that. I don't know if that would necessarily be what they're fed. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure. I haven't ate a ton of grass fed. Yeah. We grass raise cattle, so our cattle don't even really get on feed until they're 9-10 months old. So they grow up on grass. So I think that's the way most beef operations work. They're not immediately on grain when they're calves. Their mothers are raising them out, running, and so they're kind of, I think a lot of people, that's a misconception too, right? But I think, I wouldn't say that the beef would be stringier. I don't think, that might be more of a genetic type thing than anything, the way they layer their muscle and fat. But I've never noticed that myself. But I'm not a huge grass fed.
So yeah.
I've never, what I have ate of it, which is, enough to know, I've never got that feeling from it myself.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Good.
It sounds like some pretty good stuff. I don't disagree with any of it.
Yeah.
As far as grain versus grass finished beef, I think it's kind of personal preference. And then, like he was saying, like in our area, especially like on the West Coast or at least the Northwest, you have a certain window of time that you can produce a quality grass finished product. And unless you're not going to produce beef the rest of the year, like you need to grain finish it, or in my opinion, it becomes not very desirable. Grass finished beef finished at the wrong time of year, in my experience, is not as good. So ours is only available in June, maybe July, depending on the weather that year. We want them on fresh green growing grass when they're being finished. And to another point that Henry brought up here that I thought is really good and seems to be a misconception is, to my knowledge, all beef is grass fed, but not all beef is grass finished. And if you want it 100% fed grass, then you need to find grass fed, grass finished beef. Because if not, they could just be finished on grass too and have had something else beforehand.
And that's an interesting thing too. We were visiting with a guy. We actually finished some grass-fed steers for a fella a couple years ago in our operation, and they were grass-fed beef. So we were pretty limited on what we could feed. But one thing that was on that list was non-matured grain products. So if the grain, like say it was corn, if it wasn't dented, it could be fed. Well, that's a starch base, right?
Yeah.
So it's sort of grain. So you're like,
it's kind of
I wonder how
mirrors.
much. Yeah, I wonder how much gray area there is in that. And again, it doesn't matter if you're buying a quality product. It's either quality or it's not, and you're gonna buy it. If you don't like it, you're gonna go find something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, but it's interesting when I was looking at all the things we could feed to keep that group of cattle compliant with their grass-fed status. It was interesting the things that you could feed that were sort of grainy.
I think when you're getting it in the store, there's going to be a little bit more marketing to that.
Yes.
Versus like if you buy it from a local farm and they say it's grass-fed, grass-finished, like, it's probably exactly what you're getting.
Yeah.
So the other question, I just thought of this. So if I go to Costco and buy beef, it's probably the beef is the cows are probably raised on a feedlot, right?
Probably.
So if I go to say maybe a local place that's selling beef and theirs is raised on a feedlot, but it tastes better, what's the difference? Is it just the difference in the feedlot?
Probably the quality of the animals. When you're buying from somebody that's raising beef locally or sourcing beef locally, they're going to be like cherry picking the best to finish and sell to their consumers. When you're buying it at the store, that's whatever they could get cheap that fit the bill, in my opinion.
So yeah, because I've noticed that some meat I bought is good, and some meat I bought has really no flavor.
Yeah.
So it's just you never know what you're getting. I guess.
Some of that has to do with the age too. Like if they're finished and butchered at a younger age, they're gonna have less flavor. When they get older, they kind of get that more stronger, better flavor. I've had some people that have poured the grain to their own personal cows and finished them at a young age where they made weight, but they're like, it just doesn't have any flavor. Like it's tender, it looks really good, it just doesn't taste
And
like
that's an
anything.
interesting concept too, because right now, buying beef, there's a shortage of cattle. And so these feed yards are pushing these cattle further. Like we were, processing cattle at 1,450 pounds. Today, I think the average weight on a closeout's 1,593 because they're needing to put more weight on them cattle to make the same amount of beef with less animals. So to that, it'd be interesting to see what people's thoughts are going forward the next year or two until this beef herd population comes up and they're taking these animals a little longer. It would be interesting to see what people think about their meat the next year or two, because they're going to be, they're going to be harvesting larger animals. They have to. There's not enough beef out there.
So how come there is a beef shortage?
Oh boy.
Or is that another big question, huh?
Conspiracy theories.
Oh, okay. Well, we can get into that.
Oh man, I've heard a number of things. Price of cattle has been pretty good the last year, so you're not seeing heifer retention. So these people that have beef cattle are not retaining as many offspring because they're worth quite a bit of money, and you're coming out of a high feed cost year, and so I think one is you got bills to pay. Feed was higher. We got to sell more animals to keep the bills paid. I've heard different things like certain parts of the country there's drought. There's a number of things that play into that. It's interesting. You hear all these things, and I don't know if there's any less beef out there. They say the herd's the smallest it's ever been since 19 whatever, and I look around in our geographical area, and everybody that had cattle 5 years ago still has cattle, and it sure looks about the same. But I think certain parts of the world, maybe there's light on cattle.
Yeah.
And there's a couple things that are going to help with that. But in the meantime, heifer retention is at an all-time low as well because they're just worth too much down the road. So people are selling.
The thinner of, I don't think I heard that. I mean, but,
Yeah,
sure.
I'm
I'm
pretty
not-
sure.
like I said, I'm not-
Something like 1938, 1953, something like that. Lowest cow number since 75 years ago or something. So
Yeah, with the price that they're bringing on the hoof right now, it's kind of like you could sell them now, or you could sell them in a year from now for the same profit margin.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna make the same amount of money, but you're gonna have more time invested in them.
yeah.
So
People doing what you're doing, where you have a customer base that's buying beef, you have to keep those.
absolutely.
Like in my case, we market some genetics, like beef bulls, some breeding type heifers. This last spring, they were high enough. I was selecting bulls as calves, like 2-month-old calves. We were talking about, is this going to be a steer? Where we normally wait till 220 days old to decide that, because it's like they're going to be worth pretty good money this fall. Why are we going to raise bulls, put another $1,200-1,500 in them with a chance to make an extra $500? And so anyways, that's kind of getting off topic, but
No,
I think a
no,
lot of
it's
people
not.
are looking at that. It's just they're worth so much money, and it's sad too. I actually had a guy call me up yesterday. We get with this dairy deal, we get a lot of beef on dairy calves or crossbred calves or even Holstein bull calves that end up going into the meat market. And he had a cow that had lost her calf, and he calls and says, "Hey man, I need a bull calf from you." And I said, "Sure, no problem." And he said, "What do they run now?" And I said, "Well, Holstein bull calf's $400 and a beef on dairy cross calf's $900. Is it a day old?" And I said, "Yeah." And he's like, "Are you kidding me? That's a day old calf."
You're gonna want to make sure they're sitting down for that.
Yeah. I mean, 2 years ago we were selling 700-pound calves for, $140.
Yeah.
Like $300 more than a day old calf today. It's out of this world, and I think that's gonna continue on
Really?
for a bit here. It sounds like. I mean,
Did you guys see it in your area down here? In our area during COVID, like because of the shortages of things, like everybody was slaughtering everything, and our
Yeah.
slaughterhouses were backed up for like 8 months to a year. And so, my opinion, along with what you were saying, I think that's accurate as well about the heifer retention, is I think everybody butchered everything that they could because the prices were so high and nothing was available.
Yep.
And now we're seeing the aftershock of that because so many breeding pairs, got slaughtered to put meat in the freezer. Well,
yep.
if they're not producing more calves, eventually that catches up with you.
And couple that along with drought in certain areas, and it's like a perfect storm, if you will. And I think it's coming back. I think you're seeing, calvy heifers selling for $3,000 to $4,000. People will start holding heifers back and raising them again. It's just, I don't know. This guy always told me the cure to high prices is high prices. So people are going to start, doing that. They'll start raising heifers again. if you got feed.
Yeah.
So.
Typically in our area, the hay market and the beef market will offset each other. And last year was the first time that I saw both of them high. So like
Yeah.
that was unusual. But we had a short yield as far as our haying that year because we didn't have enough rain. And then there was the beef shortage that we're talking about right now. And so both prices were just screaming. So it was just kind of a lose-lose unless you were selling both.
Yeah. And then some days you look out there and look at all the work and go, maybe it would be better to sell both.
Yeah, right.
It's like, man alive.
But like you said though, retaining your customer base.
I know.
I was talking to somebody just the other day, and like for a small scale farmer, somebody doing a half a dozen or a dozen beef a year, like you'd be money ahead probably to sell as opposed to hold on to them, finish them, and sell them.
Yeah,
For
we
beef.
noticed our local butcher said that. Yeah, like the COVID years when things ramped, he's saying, "Man, I can't. I'm busy." We use a guy down the road here, and he said like they're coming into this spring, they have slots starting to open up, and things are kind of because people are selling animals versus raising them. Just
Oh yeah, when hay
work too
prices
much.
are screaming,
Yeah.
everybody starts selling their animals
Yeah.
when hay prices are screaming. When hay prices are low, everybody goes and buys an animal.
Exactly.
What is hanging weight right now, pound?
Oh boy, I don't want to get into the
You don't-
economics of things.
It fluctuates quite a bit, just depending from farm
Yeah.
and geographic location.
Yeah, because in the store, like if I go buy, I mean that's about $6-7 a pound. Just
Yeah,
ground
dressed
beef.
meat.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you're talking probably. I mean, it can go anywhere from. I was down at Costco this fall. We were there doing some Christmas shopping, and I seen a 4-pack of ribeyes. I think it was $139 for 4 steaks. I mean, we obviously raise our own, so I don't really pay attention to it. But I could not believe that a 4-pack of steaks was almost $150.
Well, I think a lot of the customers too, especially somebody that's never bought, beef in bulk like this before, like they're always comparing your overall price to what they can buy a hamburger for.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whereas it's like you really make up ground on the steaks because
Yeah.
you're severely underpaying for steaks.
Yep.
You might be overpaying for some of the burger.
yeah,
But
Yeah.
it balances out. And the last time that I looked into it, which might be a little outdated, but by the time that if you bought a whole beef and it's stacked in your freezer, if you were to go to the store and buy meat of equal quality, it would end up costing you about twice as much.
Yeah, I believe that's probably darn close.
Yeah.
And today, with feed coming off the last 6 months, if you're just looking this fall to buy some, that might be a little tighter. But I guarantee you, 23 for sure, double
Oh,
the
okay.
money. Yeah, you went uptown. I've seen some of that stuff. Like you see the ads in your Safeway or whatever for ground beef. They were clear up to almost $8 a pound, and I'm starting to see like $6.99, $6.50. So that's coming off a little bit, but these cash cattle prices are high. And if feed stays reasonable like it is right now, probably gonna just hold a steady line. But interestingly enough, the one thing that just to talk about cattle pricing a little bit here, I was looking last week at some different sales that run a large number of cattle through them, and the cash price on live cattle was higher than what it's trading on the board for. So like they trade, fats and feeder cattle on the Chicago Board of Trade, and the cash prices were between 10 and 30 cents higher at the sale barns or in live cattle transactions, whether it's Superior or any of those, were 10 to 30 cents higher than the board said that they were worth. And I don't know what's driving it. It has to be the inputs are coming down feed wise, but it's just interesting how all that's coming together.
that is.
It's wild. I don't necessarily love the high prices. I think it convolutes everything. It's like mass inflation. Like the feed was up, the cattle are up. Like it's more money to do the same thing, but you don't feel like there's not any more margin. It's less margin. It's more dollars outlaid. So I think for everybody, from our end clear to the consumer to the people buying our stock.
Well, I think you're not making any more money, but you have a lot more liability.
You do. Yeah.
that's
Back to why people are probably trading out
Yeah.
their stuff rather than raising it as much.
Yeah.
Just so much risk.
I mean, if you got, half a dozen cows or whatever, and you lose one,
Right.
you
Yeah.
were going to make the same profit margin you're going to make before. But now all of a sudden that's a $3,000 hit,
Yeah.
and if you got animals, you're eventually going to have a problem. It's like the law of averages. The more you got, the more issues you're going to have. There's roughly like a percentage that like you can expect to have complications with.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Sure.
you can intervene and fix that problem, and sometimes nature just takes its place.
Yep. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, that's a lot A lot of interesting stuff.
We're getting more in the economics than
Yeah, that's
okay.
fine. That's fine too.
That's
Just
been
tread the water.
super fluid the last few years too. So there's
Yeah.
not any
Well,
always
man,
or
that's
never
just,
answers.
it's just kind of just informing people that, you know, go to
Why is
the-
our beef so high in
Yeah.
the store? Well,
Yeah.
it's costing a tremendous amount of money to get it there. Not just by us feeding them as you know, a cow calf operation, but
Yeah.
anybody that's finishing, or doesn't matter if it's the local guy doing 30
Yeah.
a year, the guy that's doing 30,000 a year, supplying Costco with beef. It's high for everybody. Everything's gone up. Inflationary factors the last 2 years have been extraordinary. So the reason beef's high in the store, everything that we do to get it there is a lot more expensive.
You know, this might come as a shock to some people, and I feel like you seem compassionate about it as well. But like, I don't like raising my prices.
No,
I'm not
it's-
making any more money.
it's hard.
and I know I'm just putting more strain on the consumer. But the alternative is you go out of business, and then you can't help anyone.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, so
Yeah. No, it's interesting.
Like,
yeah,
it's not
we
a greed
struggled with
thing.
that in 23 because feed costs were going through the roof, and we had some months there. It was like things were going up so fast you could raise your prices, but it's like everything was going so fast you couldn't keep up.
you were you were
So it's like
constantly
this
raising
weird-
them to be
yeah.
reactive.
That whole year was like chasing your tail, and it that was a weird one. I don't know. They say it's comparable to the 70s. I wasn't alive then, so I don't
I
know.
wasn't
Yeah.
either.
I heard my
was,
grandpa
but
and my
yeah.
dad talk about it a little bit, and they're like, "Yeah, I bought my first place was 14% interest, and that tractor I had to borrow money for was 19." And I'm just like, "Oh my gosh!" Like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like you don't even. I don't know. It doesn't even make sense, but we might be there today. I don't know.
Yeah. So how does a beef price compare to like the lamb or the pork? Does that move with it or not? Or is that all, are they
I
all
think
independent?
honestly, I think animal protein almost follows cattle, because when you look at the amount of animal protein out there, I mean, I'm sure, you know, poultry and swine is a large volume, but I think it's just like any commodity. If one commodity goes up, if we're talking corn and soybeans, if soybeans are climbing up, sometimes they'll drag corn up with it or wheat up with it, or you know. And I'm sure beef is similar. I don't know how many more pounds of beef or less than there is of chicken, but I would have to assume that just by way of volume, there's probably more beef consumed in the country than there is poultry and swine. So I'm sure as beef has come up, I don't pay much attention to it. I kind of follow I watched this NCBA deal here a couple years ago, and it's a joke that my kids like chicken, and I'm a beef guy, and I'm not against chicken, okay? I eat it. But the guy at NCBA, he comes up on the stage, and he's some manager for some big poultry operation in the Midwest, and again, I have nothing against chicken, so don't take this the wrong way, but he gets up on stage, and I just start laughing, because the first thing he says when he stands up in front of all these beef producers, thousands of them, he says, "You know why people like chicken?" And he goes, "Because it has no taste, so they just dip it in whatever they like in it, and then it's like what they want, you know." And I just started laughing, and he was dead serious. And I'm watching this on TV, like, wow, you know. So, anyways, that kind of got off topic, but I would imagine that all that stuff has come up. They have the same woes we do,
Yeah.
you know. They got a
I would
costs that are
assume
going up.
the cost to produce all of that stuff's going to go up equally to what the beef has, and probably the only thing that's going to separate the price of the beef or any of them being any higher than the others is going to be supply and demand.
Yeah.
You know, if one of them shortens supply, you know, then that's going to drive the price up. But other than that, the inputs to raise them across the board are probably coming up fairly equally.
Yeah.
You can kind of look at fuel prices and then expect that, you know, in a few months you're going to see that reflected in the stores as far as everything. Because it costs more to transport your stuff, it costs more to produce your stuff. Like everything kind of follows fuel
Well, we're kind of
prices.
hoping the fuel prices come down, drill baby drill.
Right?
We'll
Yeah.
see. They changed the Gulf to Gulf America. So.
Let's not go down the politics.
right.
I didn't mean to mess this up.
No, this is the
I'm just,
podcast. It
I'm
goes
just hoping
anywhere.
fuel gets cheaper.
Yeah, me too.
In our operations, fuel is a huge cost, so it's not like when we had $2 diesel, things were really awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Not that at all. So, anyways, we're
No,
talking
I'm
about-
sure that does translate into more money. I mean,
Well, it just makes it easier, like for everybody.
Well, I mean, if you think about anything, what's not affected by fuel? You know, like in one way or another, fuel's transporting or moving something to get it to you, or to get it to where you can go buy it.
yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, so it's all got, if it costs more, it's just going to go down the line.
All right, then we're finished the first question.
No,
Right on.
Yeah. So I just wanted to know you guys' opinion on organic.
Oh,
Because
good.
there's people that, they organic.
He
this,
starts
organic
this time.
that. Are you an organic expert?
No, I'm not. I think if you're buying it, if you're buying your meat direct local, it's probably more marketing than anything else. I think if there's certain things that you don't want in your food and you're buying your meat from the grocery store, then it's kind of gonna blanket cover most of those things. So if you're buying it from the store and you want to be real particular about what's in your food, then organic's probably a good choice. If you're buying it from a local farmer, then they're probably pretty close to organic anyways. And the nice thing about buying from somebody local is that you can ask them. If there's something you're concerned about, you can say, hey, are you doing this with your critters? And you'd be like, yes or no. So if you're buying local, then I don't think there's much benefit to it. If you're buying it from the grocery store, there could be.
Okay.
In my opinion.
That's a good answer. Good answer on that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that go into that. So, number one is, again, marketing. It's created a niche market for folks, and there's a lot of people that were already kind of doing organic before it was a thing. I'm involved with the dairy industry more so than beef probably, and we've seen a lot of our grazing type operations go organic. They were already basically organic anyways, but I'll give you just a quick story. This kind of stuck with me my whole entire life. So when I first started my own business, it was about 15 years ago in production agriculture. I needed an LLC, so I go down to Eugene and I go into this lawyer's office because I don't know where to even go, but it said they did this kind of thing. So I go in there and tell this attorney what we need, and we can draw that up quick, blah, blah, blah. And so we get in there and she's asking me all about what we're going to do and all this. And one of her questions was, are we going to be organic? And I said, no. She said, why not? And I was like, I treat my animals like my kids. If they're sick, I'm not going to rub tinctured vinegar on their throat if they got strep throat. We're going to go down to the doctor and get them something to cure it. Okay? And I'm not saying that, organic is bad by any means. I'm just saying I'm going to treat my stock. We don't mass doctor cattle. That's an old school way of managing cattle. Today there's awesome vaccination programs you can put cattle on. We were talking to Don earlier about worming cattle with different forms of feed, or just keeping balances of rations correct to not have sick animals. The days of mass doctoring cattle are much lower than they used to be. There was tons of feed through stuff, antibiotic stuff like that would just manage sickness in cattle. And does that still happen? Absolutely some, but it's not economical. Antibiotics are expensive.
Oh yeah.
And so when you start sitting there looking at some of this stuff, like, we're not going out and just, this animal's going to perform better if we give it something. So kind of getting down that road, I don't necessarily disagree with organic, but what I say is I don't think anybody's overusing antibiotics. I think there's probably some that could potentially be doctoring cattle because of their bad management. But I think today, if you're going to be in this thing long term, it's just like anything we do, whether it's herbicides on crop ground or whatever. It's how we're managing our business, so that to be organic is not impossible, but I don't know that it's long term. Yeah, if I got a calf that's 500 pounds and it has a bit of a snot nose and looking like it maybe gets some sort of bovine respiratory disease, we have an antibiotic we can give that calf and make it right. And FDA has a withholding on that we follow, and no animal.
Touch on that a little bit. I think that's something a lot of people don't know. I think they think that their meat, if it's had antibiotics, is going in with it like active in their body.
Yeah.
There's a withholding period to where when it's processed, like it had it at one point in time, but it's not present anymore.
Yeah, and I think as long as those guidelines are followed, again, nothing against organic. I just, for my sake, I would feel bad letting an animal die or be compromised the rest of its life because we didn't give it a shot of LA200 or Draxxin or
where's
something.
the compassion in that?
Yeah, exactly. That's so when I told her that, when I explained that to this attorney gal, she just kind of looked at me dumbfounded. She goes, "My kid just had strep throat 2 weeks ago," and I said, "What does that turn into if you don't get it? Some sort, there's that fever that comes. They can die from it, right? So it's like we're doing the same thing with our cattle."
Especially with small calves, depending on what time of year it is, like
Yeah.
they can tank in a hurry if you don't get a handle on something like that.
Yeah. So I'm not going to say that I have friends that do organic, and they still doctor cattle. They just can't keep them and run them under their organic thing.
Yeah,
like
they're
organic
just no
people
longer
are just like
certified organic.
just like whatever. But I see some different recipes coming along, and sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Tinctures of this, whatever, to maybe doctor an animal, but they may try that for a day, and if we're not seeing some balance, then we're gonna go ahead and treat that calf with an antibiotic, and that calf's gonna get moved to a non-organic farm or whatever they do with them. But I don't know. For me, it was just a tough nut to swallow when you.
I think a lot of people don't understand along that same lines. Like, you can still vaccinate organic cattle. You can do preventative measures. It's more the reactive measures that are, more limited.
Yep.
So,
And I honestly think just the dairymen that I call in that organic, which is several thousand head of cattle, they are very much so in a preventative deal. They vaccinate, quite a bit, for different diseases, Clostridium, respiratory type viruses, some reproductive viruses, and they're probably more so into vaccination than
and if you've ever seen any cattle go through any of those things, it'll change your mind,
in a hurry.
Yeah.
especially
In a
if they're
hurry.
your cattle.
Yeah, we had a BRSB outbreak one time, bovine respiratory type outbreak, and some 45 to 60 day old calves. And man alive, you want to talk about test your patience. When you come to work and your guys are in tears because they're doctoring cattle and they ain't getting better and you don't know what the heck to do, yeah, you're going to vaccinate your cattle. And they were vaccinated. It was just, we give them a nasal vaccination. That's a kind of a local deal. And it wears about 45, 50 days. And anyways, we were seeing some of that pop up about 50 days, and there was nothing that touched it. So yeah, organic guys can use those vaccinations, but when it comes to like doctoring cattle and that, they're still doctoring cattle. They're just not running through their program after that. But I for myself can't see doing it. I don't know. It's not something I want to go into. But I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's not something I'm going to do.
Yeah, no, that's good, because a lot of people they assume that organic is just put them on a pasture and butcher them and they're organic. And
Well, when you go down to like Costco and stuff, everything's organic now. I don't know where they find all of it. I was looking at eggs with my wife when I was there this fall. Again, I don't go very often to town. Everything was organic. The fruit, the vegetables. It's like, where do they find all this stuff? I mean, I don't know. It just seemed like everything was organic at Costco nowadays. It's like they got that big O on them, and you're like, where do they find all this stuff?
that's probably it's kind of like what free range chickens, if they're not
Yep.
We
We have a
in a
client.
pen, they're free range basically.
Yeah,
They're
we
not
have a
the
client in
little
Tillamook that
cage
raises
of free range.
meat birds,
Yeah.
and once in a while he'll give me some chicken, tasteless meat. And, my wife makes it tasty, but yeah, it's different than like chicken breast you buy uptown.
Yeah.
It just I don't know the way that maybe they raise them slow. I don't know what the deal is, but
Well, I just found out recently that if you buy chicken breasts in a store and they're kind of white and kind of stringy, they did something with them with some kind of chemical.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I'm not familiar with that.
I just found that out.
no.
Yeah, because I wondered, because I bought some chicken meat from Costco, Winco. I think maybe Winco no more so, and it's kind of really stringy. And I just found that out. It's because there's some kind of chemicals they put in it.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same page as Anders. We're like, I'll eat chicken, but I don't think I've ever gone to a restaurant and ordered it.
No, if it's chicken breast or filet or New York or something.
Yeah, for sure.
Probably
Definitely go
gonna-
with the steak.
Is there
Spend the
really a
extra $10
choice
to
there?
get the steak.
Yeah.
But beef, it's what's for dinner.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And then I guess we did talk a little bit about health, maybe we did. Just the health benefit of beef.
I think beef's a little bit heavier in like your nutrients and your minerals and stuff than the other meats. Some of the other meats, it kind of depends what you're after. There are leaner sources of protein, but you're going to get a more complete. You're gonna get more complete nutrition from the beef. Like, it's gonna be heavier in iron, B12, your minerals and stuff. So there's a lot of benefit to it. If you're not taking vitamins, you're probably better off eating beef.
Then chicken.
Yeah, than chicken. In fact, I think they call beef liver the nature's multivitamin because it's just loaded with a ton
That's
of
what
good
I've heard
stuff for
too.
you.
I'm not consuming tons of liver, but
Dude, I was trying to eat some liver for a little bit. Like, I really tried to
I
like
see
it.
people on carnivore diet. They're like elevated in a lot of that stuff, niacin and selenium, and like you said, iron, B12, and all that. I've never went full carnivore. I've kicked the idea around. I'm getting a little chubby and thought about maybe
I have some family
maybe a little
members
bit
that
of
did.
maybe a little bit of carnivore diet would be good, right? but I still like bread. Dang it.
I did
Yeah.
too. I did keto for a little bit, and I lost weight and all of that. But I felt better with a little bit of carbs, a little bit more carbs in my diet. So like
I've heard
moderate
that.
carbs, high protein. I just felt better.
Yep, I've heard the same thing. I don't follow a diet today, but as you age, you start getting a little more weight on you, and you're like, I wonder if I try one of these. But I hate them starvy type deals. I want to eat meat. I want to drink milk. It's just I grew up that way. So
Yeah,
it's
I
hard
have,
to-
I have a sister that's on the carnivore diet. She claimed she felt better on it. So.
Yeah, I know a couple
Yeah.
people. I have a client in Tillamook. He dropped like 100 pounds. He was pretty overweight, and his doctor's like, you got to do something. And he tried that carnivore diet. He lost like 88 pounds in like 6 months.
Wow.
Just straight up eating meat. Like that's all he does.
I don't know about you guys, and not knocking against vegetarians or vegans or anything, but like when you see somebody that lost a bunch of weight or whatever on like a vegan or vegetarian diet, like they just kind of look skinny and not
Pale.
that healthy to me.
Yeah.
When you see somebody do carnivore loses a bunch of stuff, you're like, dude, you look great. What's going
You
on?
look 20 years younger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on that same token, like most of your meat, if not all of them, are they have all 9 of your essential amino acids. Whereas like if you do like a plant-based protein, most of those don't. So you're gonna have to supplement something to have a complete and balanced diet.
Yep.
So to me, it just seems logical that meat's the answer.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think we talked a little bit already, just kind of the outlook for 2025 this year with the beef.
It's hard to say because the market's been so fluid lately, but I would expect to see prices go up in the store and outside of the store, especially just based on live weight prices right now. I don't know what they are down here, but in our area, they're like all-time highs
Yep.
and keep going up. Keep thinking that it's gonna go back down or dip or balance out.
And it will a
just
little
keeps
bit if the
going up.
funds get in the middle of trading, but again, if you like I was saying earlier, the board doesn't seem to matter today. Cash prices are outweighing the board. Board goes up and down a little bit. It just stays pretty steady.
So people going to the store they're gonna just expect to pay.
I
pretty much what they are the rest
I
of this
think
year, at
meat
least.
prices are gonna. I would imagine. I mean, because the cattle that are being bought, this fall out of the spring herd of 24, they'll be finishing between April and August of this year. So I would imagine that's the beef that's gonna end up in the stores. So I would imagine if they were paying big money for calves, they're gonna have to charge big money for help.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's kind of this deal
Well,
doesn't
there's
change.
going to be a delayed reaction too, because like they paid X amount for this group, so when that goes to market, they're going to need to get X amount out of it. So like that purchase might have taken place 6 months ago. So
Unless if some, they call it, was it like black swan event or whatever happens, maybe then those market, it doesn't matter what you're it's like if things go, which I never have understood some of that stuff anyways, but
you might know a little bit more about this than I do because I try not to pay too much attention to the things that I have no control over. But like a lot of the meat.
so
that
what are
you're
you saying? I do? No, I'm kidding.
No, you just seem a little
What's the
more
weather going to be
versed
like
on
tomorrow?
That was not what I meant.
Yeah.
But like a lot of the meat that you're buying in the grocery store, like that's bought outside of the United States. So like for like a year there or better, I was watching our prices go up and the live animal prices just up and up and up and up. And I was like, why is it not reacting in the store? And then it occurred to me because they're buying out of a different market. Like they're bringing in a lot of meat from like Brazil and I think even Mexico.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to see, and I kind of expect a pretty dramatic change in prices there with the tariffs that they're talking about putting on stuff. Like if all of a sudden those beef coming from outside the United States with the tariffs cost as much or more than the stuff that they can buy within the United States, that's going to put a lot of strain on the domestic market. So then you're going to see live prices really go up, and then
Potentially, yeah.
potentially,
I think so.
and then you'll see that reflect in the store because the people that are putting in the store are going to be paying a lot more.
You might have saw that here last month or two with the Mexican cattle having that.
That screw worm.
Yeah. They kind of halted them cattle coming into the country, and you saw live prices come up 10, 15 cents, 100, and I think the tariff thing's that's a whole nother tornado.
That's what I was saying. Like I haven't dug into that too deep, but
Tell you that.
thinking like because
I don't even want to. Let's
it's
not even go.
No,
there.
there's some people think it's the greatest
Yeah.
thing. So
Well, and you know what? I think there's a strategy to all things, and people that are in places of power, whether it's the president or your local school board. They do things for a reason, and there's a reason they're elected to be there. And
Yeah.
if they think that's the strategy that's going to work for the near term future and long term future, then if we elected them, then let it be. It's what it is.
I mean, what else are you gonna do, right?
That's right. Again, we're not going to worry about it because we can't control it.
Yeah.
But the Americans voted. So if the administration says we're putting tariffs on China or whoever, then that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah.
Not going to change it.
Yeah.
We're going to have
Until
to work
that all
with it.
settles out, though, it might be a good idea.
Yeah.
It could be a whirlwind.
Yeah. The other thing that, just for my interest and probably everybody else's, is Wagyu beef. Do you know much
Oh.
about that?
Oh yeah.
You know, so the Wagyu beef. So if I walk into Safeway, buy
Sure.
Wagyu beef, that's American Wagyu beef,
Maybe I don't
Maybe.
know. I don't know.
Mexican Wagyu beef.
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I just have a little bit of experience, and it's actually been as of late. And it's kind of an interesting deal, and nothing that I'm going to brag much about. But we fed some Jersey Wagyu
Yeah.
crosses. So some of these dairies in California have like this little niche deal that they're doing with this Wagyu. And again, we were talking about like certified Angus beef earlier and how what that really means, and is it really Angus or is it just?
Well, we
black
could
Angus?
get into that for these guys. What is the difference between certified and not certified?
Okay, hold on. Let's go down the Wagyu trail
Okay.
for just a minute, and we're gonna go into that. So we got these Jersey Wagyu crosses, and they're an interesting animal to feed. So I like to track dry matters on cattle that we're feeding. So we group them up for a period of time. When I say track dry matters, so the amount of dry feed that we put into those animals per head per day, and it was interesting because I'm like, man, these things just don't seem to like grow, but they were also eating 25% less than their neighbors that were the same weight, which I thought was weird, but they just didn't seem to have that go, and so looking at it comparatively, like a native calf being, anything from a Sim Angus to a Hereford Angus or whatever people have out and about, Charolais cross, whatever, their counterparts would eat more feed, they would gain more, but them cattle just are slow going. But I'll tell you what, Colt was down day before yesterday, and took 2 of them, and they take forever. But when he cut through the ribeye portion for me just to take a gander at, and we've done quite a few of them. But he was showing me, and they do put some weird marbling on. I mean, it's packed with marbling. If you're into that,
Really?
I grew up eating Baron Holstein heifers, so I like a little leaner beef. But if you're into like that high fat type deal, they definitely do that. They do that. They're slower going from a feeding standpoint. I'm not that into it because it takes forever to get them there. I bet you some of them critters will hit 27, 28 months before they're
Really?
ready. Yeah, they just go slower.
So-
and our traditional beef calves are 18, 19 months, maybe 20, 21 on a heifer. But those Wagyu take forever to go. And
Yep.
it didn't help that they were crossed with Jersey too, and they're already kind of small. But that being said, when you look at them from a frame score standpoint, they're probably similarly built to a Jersey. They're not huge animals. So those crossbreds, I mean, when you look at them steaks, they're marbled crazily.
I don't have very much experience with it myself, but I've looked into it a few times, kind of thinking about crossing like a Angus Wagyu.
Those
see
are
what they
awesome.
come out with.
Those are awesome.
But
Yeah.
everybody that I've talked to about the Wagyu says that they're pushing 3 years before they're
Yeah.
finished properly.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have a whole
Well, they're
another
expensive
year
in
of
the store. I
input.
mean, if you buy
Because you got to put so much time and energy. Like you look at it from our standpoint, feeding cattle. If an animal's standing around your place eating, there's two main costs you got to look at: your infrastructure cost and your feed cost. Well, if that thing's sitting there eating less, so it's costing you less money there, but it's taking up a hole that another animal could have completely almost finished again in its same spot. So what is?
Yeah,
see what I
that
mean?
same money's tied up for a
Yeah.
longer period of time.
Yeah.
So I didn't know. So Wagyu, you can cross with all different kinds.
Oh yeah. Any breeds
Yeah,
you
you
can
can
cross.
cross
Yeah. Heck, I think there's even people crossing buffalo into beef.
Buffalo?
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I'm sure
They'll
there
do it.
is.
Yeah. But yeah, Wagyu. There's a Wagyu cross like crazy. This beef on dairy thing is interesting. There's a ton of that going on right now, and I think if it wasn't for that, this beef deal might be more than it is now.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of those. It's putting a lot of pressure on the dairy market too. You see, a lot of these guys are breeding tons and tons of beef to their dairy cows, and so they're making these calves that are, like I said earlier, $800-900, and
Isn't that kind of driving up the replacement heifer prices for
Oh,
the dairies?
absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
they're all beef.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of them are beef crossed now.
I seen some heifers. So the other day, Holstein heifers, 2-year-olds, ready to calve for their first time for $3,500. Yeah. So, and then you couple that with, you know, a lack of cattle. We had some bird flu issues in the livestock dairy side the last 6-8 months, which is also in turn caused some, you know, accelerated, you know, need. Yeah, this cattle thing is kind of crazy in the dairy world. And you haven't seen milk prices have been okay, but it hasn't hit that very hard. I think production stayed, it's off, but it's steady. But yeah, it's interesting how the dairy guys are breeding beef cattle now, and they're actually genetically figuring out how to make a terminal cross out of a Holstein that actually feeds up quite well. I've fed some of them by now, and it's interesting. They run right with the best of these native calves, and if they're done right, they're pretty good.
Now, those Holsteins, do they take a little longer to finish as well?
Slightly, not
Okay.
much. Yes, definitely, but not. It's not. I mean, when you see the likes of Simplot and some of these people getting into feeding them cattle and contracting them calves off the dairies at day old, if Simplot, you know, in our geographic area, they're one of the largest cattle feeders. If they're getting involved in them calves, they got to be doing something.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? Like they're not going to buy into a program that isn't going to be, you know, working.
Have you butchered any?
Oh yeah, we have for years. So we had a dairy we worked with. We raised heifers, and they bred some beef years ago before this craze started. So we've kind of been doing it off and on. I don't have good data on that because we haven't done like, you know, hundreds or thousands of them, but we've raised quite a darn few of them. I mean, 50, 60, 70 of them probably over the last 5 years to finish. And I don't know how to grade because all of our stuff goes through local. So, hey Colt, what is this thing grade? Is it Select Plus? Is it Choice? Is it Prime?
Yeah.
It looks good. That's what he says. It looks good. Okay. You know, marbled, good flavor, tastes good. People like it. They yield grade well. Like they have good, you know, percentages on the beef that comes off of them when they're finished.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean,
With those like Holsteins specifically though, like they got a lot of bone, so
Yep.
that's
Heck
going
yeah.
to bring down your yield a little bit as well too.
Dang right.
So sometimes like you'll see, you know, an Angus Holstein cross, it'll be a better price, but you're going to end up roughly paying the same amount by the time it's stacked in your freezer because there's going to be a lot more trim.
Yep.
So how would you? So in the store they grade. I mean, they say they're graded in the store. But
And I think those are.
Those are.
You know,
They have
USDA
somebody-
has people
yeah.
in there that know how to grade
Grade.
meat and that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not our local butcher who's a very great guy, Colt, if you ever hear this, no pun, but it looks good or it's okay or it's lean.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the grading we get.
Yeah,
I think that one was prime.
that's prime.
They're all prime.
They're all prime. Cost wise, they sure seem like they're all prime.
yeah. Platinum beef.
Oh, that so just a local butcher. That's not graded.
I
Not
mean,
typically,
not
not
the
that
ones
often,
we
yeah.
use. He doesn't really say, but I mean, I suppose if you really looked into it and learned how to grade meat, you could, but
You
I
could
think
stamp it on there. Though.
most of these folks that are raising beef local are feeding their cattle right. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
if you're gonna take the time to, because
Yeah.
let's face it, most people like I have a few buddies that do locker beef, but it's not like their main job. They have a town job.
Yeah.
We call it the 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. guys, right?
Yeah.
Like they do it when they get home, and it's like chores, right? And they might have
Yeah.
10 or 15 locker beef a year or whatever, and it's like a side job for them, if you will. So they're not going to do it if they're not going to do a good job and
Yeah.
feed something up, right? And yeah, I mean, one thing that we didn't touch on that I think is important is some of the stuff that I probably how you're raising beef, like there's something to do with like docility. We were talking about this earlier about certain breeds and docility. I've found that like if you have animals that are like calm and like, you know, they're not rowdy, obnoxious cattle, because some of them can be that way. Those ones always seem to be the better eating
Oh,
ones.
yeah.
And I don't know what that has to, if it's just the adrenaline or attention.
I always say happy cows taste better.
Yeah, and so if you're raising cattle in an environment where they're like stress free and like things are pretty chill, It sounds a little maybe hippie-ish, but I think that them cattle.
Oh,
are
dude,
better
I agree
eating.
completely.
They're not leaner. They're the softer, right? You go to
Really?
cut into a steak and it just feels. Yeah, totally. Yeah,
You got one with a bad attitude.
yeah.
Yeah.
Send them.
They're gonna be a tougher
Wasn't that
piece
what they
of meat.
say with those Wagyu beef over in Japan or something? They really baby those cows.
Yeah,
supposedly.
I've heard they massage them
Yeah,
and stuff like that.
Well, maybe that now there could be there's something to it probably then.
There probably is.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're standing in somebody's garage, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And they're-
Yeah.
No, seriously, I seen a video of that. Like these people have them like in their house, and they're like bringing them food, and they do all this random stuff with them,
Yeah.
massaging them and doing all this stuff.
So that's genetic, you think?
I believe, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think most of this stuff is, and we were talking about that in docility traits in cattle, and that's inheritable. So, you know, he's talking about a cow that might be a brat when she calves. Well, calves generally can be a brat too.
No, yeah, just get rid of that bloodline.
Really?
Yeah.
That's gonna.
Yeah. And I would imagine, and maybe that has something to do with, you know.
Yeah, when I first got going in this, my uncle told me he kind of was the one that got me started in the cattle, and he said if you got one with a bad attitude, he said get rid of it because it's contagious. The others will learn that bad behavior.
That's crazy.
Yep. And their daughters will too.
And that's true, and like we've had our main herd for quite a while now, and like I open the gate, and instead of trying to get out or get to the feed, they turn and they walk to the feeder. Or like if they hear a chain rattle and they just line up to move to the next field, But then when we first started our herd, you'd always have that one cow that would not cooperate, and it would just turn like a 30-minute job into a 2-hour job. Anyways, we culled those ones out, and now it's not a problem anymore.
That's it. So do you have your own bull?
Yes. Yep, we replace them about every 3 years. Because we rotate in a few replacement heifers every year,
Yeah.
just to kind of try and keep that herd fresh. But yeah, we always our mommy cows, they're at least 50% Angus. Most of them are closer to 3/4 Angus or more, and then we always run a purebred bull.
Oh, okay.
So,
Interesting.
and he's got the one that we're running currently right now has just a really laid back demeanor. Like he's just like one of the other cows. Like you're not worried at all to walk out there with him, and it reflects in his calves. Like this last couple of years, we've had the most friendly calves we've ever had. We're like, for the first week, they just walk up to you and let you pet them and stuff. Versus normally you get like a day of that, and then you better be quick on your feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Head on a turntable.
Oh yeah.
So do you know anything about dry age?
No.
Okay.
Not enough.
Not enough.
I actually tried it one
Yeah.
time. We were down in California somewhere, and we went to this restaurant that everybody was raving about, and I got some of it, and I thought it was kind of funny tasting myself.
It does.
I think it's a acquired taste, if you will.
It's kind of a nutty taste.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It just wasn't. It didn't. I'm not used to it.
Yeah.
Again, maybe like grass-fed, grain-fed type deal. Like you acquire a taste for something, and right.
No, I think you're right about that.
I've never. I've only tried it one time, like real dry age
Yeah,
stuff. You
yeah.
walk in, they got it, hanging
Yeah,
there, and that,
yeah.
it was.
And you'll know it's dry age.
I didn't care for it all that much. I didn't think it was all it was cracked up to be.
Yeah.
And I think they charge like $20 more a steak.
Yeah,
for
that's
it too.
expensive.
What the
dry
heck?
age.
I've never bought dry aged beef, but all of ours with the local butcher shop, all of it's dry aged. Like they don't wet age any of it.
Yeah.
And what I've noticed from that, which is our own beef, is it just seems like it has more flavor. Not like a gamey flavor or anything. There's just more flavor.
So individual cuts they dry age, or like when they quarter it, they hang
they
it
hang the whole thing.
in a freezer or
A cooler.
in a cooler.
Yes.
So temperature difference, because like a freezer is what, -80 or something.
Yeah, I want to say it's like 40-ish degrees.
Like
I
a
really don't know
refrigerator
exactly. Like a
almost.
refrigerator.
Okay.
And
Interesting.
then it hangs for, it depends on the size of the carcass, but it typically hangs for like 10 to 20 days.
Mm-hmm.
The bigger they are, the longer they need to hang.
Well, I've heard dry age. What it does kind of just breaks down the tissue,
I see.
and just, that's what it's doing.
Interesting.
Some of the moisture too evaporates while it's
Yeah, it does.
hanging.
That does too.
And so like when you buy a dry aged steak or a dry aged pound of burger, you're not going to have near as much shrinkage in the pan as like wet aged.
Yeah.
Because like wet aged, they seal it up and it ages, and the moisture can't escape.
Interesting.
Like I bought these bags you can buy on Amazon. It says dry age, but basically it's wet age because it's moisture inside. And the whatever it is that I do will shrink about 30%. And then by the time you cut off like the pellicles, that hard crust around it, you know, you end up with something, you know, you might do a steak that big and end up with one about that big when you're done.
So I've never done that. So that's
But it breaks it down and it gives it kind of that nutty flavor taste, and it's just really just tender and kind of a dark red. Turns it kind of a dark red. But,
Huh.
yeah, I've messed around with that some.
Yeah.
Doing grill aged.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But yeah. Anything else you guys want to talk about, or I mean that's about all the questions that I had. Or do you guys have questions for him? Don has a whole list of questions for him.
Well, I'd need more comments than questions, so they might be interested in their notes I made them.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I got one thing I wanted
Yeah.
to mention. So, something that I always talk to people about, and I'm an advocate, if you will. I like talking agriculture with folks. Is the food chain in this country is one of the safest, most inexpensive food chains in the world, and we get caught up in all these myths and sales gimmicks and things, and worrying about whether something is X, Y, or Z rather than is it just good, solid food. And when it comes to animal production in this country, I can't speak for other foods that we eat, but when it comes to proteins, whether that's, you know, dairy, you know, swine, poultry, beef, like what we're doing, I think that it is a very safe food supply. And you can just look at all the foodborne illness around the world, and in our country, it's pretty dull roar. And when you do see it in our country, follow that deal back. We start talking about things coming from other places. The food grown here, especially if your neighbor's growing it, it's going to be good food.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's an important highlight. Whether it's any of the subject matter we've talked about, from organic to grass-fed to whatever, it's safe. And that is, to me, hugely important that consumers understand that we have a absolutely safe food production system when it comes to livestock production. There is so many regulations and control factors in there that, I mean, just from the animal side of it that we see, let alone everything that happens after we leave, we are very fortunate to have the food supply that we have and the safe food supply that we have. You go down to Costco and there is never a lack of product there.
No.
Ever. Things are stacked to the ceiling. We are lucky in this country to have that, and it's because of how we do things.
Yeah.
And I really preach that, and I believe that. I think that we're very lucky. So something I always tell people ask me about different things about food production in the country, and that's one thing I will say is I when you look at all the stuff out there, we are pretty lucky to be in a country that has pretty inexpensive food. We've talked about the prices going up, but you still look at that across the board. You go anywhere else, first world country, I'm not talking third world, I'm talking, you go through Europe or anywhere like that, their food costs are double, triple ours.
Yeah.
And it's because of, you know, the things that we do to be efficient, you know.
Yeah.
So and hopefully under-regulate us. So we got enough of that, but you know, like you go into some of these other countries, like for instance, we run a dairy feeding heifer operation, and part of our deal is you know, NRCS or our nutrient management plans and stuff, and dairy manure has a certain amount of nitrogen and phosphorus, and any manure does from animals. And not to get off topic, but you go to some other countries and they're very limited on how much of certain, you know, nutrient they can put on ground, okay, and whether or not for water stuff, which is totally reasonable. But you get into places like Holland, they're cutting these dairies back 50 to 75%, and it's unrealistic expectations. We haven't got there yet, will we? Maybe, but they're cutting these guys way back, you know, and so their food costs just keep climbing, and so it's like this balance of, you know, an abundance of food that costs reasonable versus less food that's higher priced.
Yeah.
We could talk about a ton of different things that affect that.
Yeah.
You know, we got a frog in Eastern Oregon that's took 100,000 acres of production hay out because of some frog that's not even native to here.
Oh, really?
I bet if you asked 99% of Oregonians if they were like, hey, if beef could be like 50 cents a pound cheaper, if, you know, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like, there's like this
yeah.
balance, like, not to get off topic, but we have a safe food supply and an abundance of it at a very reasonable price. And I think that we are fortunate for that.
Yeah.
I think every farmer out there,
Yeah.
the guys that are from, you know, start to finish on production livestock, whether you're raising 10 or 100 or 1,000, we have a lot of people behind us that are, you you know, growing feedstocks, growing seeds for our pastures, growing, you know, whatever, getting our products out there. You know, we're pretty lucky.
A lot of support behind it.
There is, because it's not just what we're doing on our side, right?
Yeah.
If we're selling direct, we got a butcher, we got, you know, people bringing us feed, we got people helping us,
Yeah.
we got cousins coming on the weekends or brothers coming on the after work to help fix fence, or, you know, like like production agriculture is pretty family based.
Yeah.
That's another misconception. Talking about like corporate farms, there's a ton of them out there, but they're ran by families.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
These big farms, they have 10,000 acres or 20,000 acres, but they're managed
Yeah.
by families. The fund manager in LA is not running that farm, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of people like us that are out there, you know, doing the work, and so whether or not they own it or not, they're invested in it, and
Yeah.
I think we're lucky for that in this country. We got a great food supply, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. I think we do. Yeah.
I think people in general, they get a little bit too comfortable and they start thinking of things to complain about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
taking a step back and thinking it could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
it's pretty stringent. I have a buddy that was in basically compliance and food processing plants for years, and he was we were talking about, he was down in the coast of California, and I don't remember what they were harvesting something, and lettuce or something, and there was a pretty good crew out there cutting stuff,
Yeah.
and well, they have bathrooms there, and so part of his compliance management was that there was a person that monitored bathrooms to make sure when somebody went in, they washed their hands.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, do you think the lettuce that comes from somewhere else, they have people monitoring that? Just little things like that,
Yeah.
right? Like this is like
Do
we're
they
doing
even
that
have
stuff.
bathrooms there?
Yeah.
I think I seen it over here at the Blueberries.
Yeah.
They have, you know, the neighbors have.
Yeah.
There's somebody there at the bathroom watching if they use the restroom, they wash their hands. Well, that's a small thing, but it's like those are the kind of things that keep our food supply in
Yeah.
a pretty
Yeah.
safe
That's
manner.
why we have it.
Hear about these salmonella or coli outbreaks in lettuce. Well, where did it come from? I hate to wonder.
Yeah.
You know, how does lettuce get E. coli on it?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So, anyways, that's a whole other topic. But I still think our food is extremely safe, and we're darn lucky for that.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with you on that for sure. Because I know I like going to the store. I buy whatever I need. I don't get sick on it.
No.
Oh, yeah.
I come home, cook it, whatever. You know, you're supposed to wash your vegetables. I'm kind of bad about that. Sometimes I just
Forget.
Yeah,
Start
forget.
chopping.
Yeah.
I don't know. I got to ask my wife. She always does all that work.
Yeah.
She always cuts up everything and
Yeah,
washes everything.
yeah.
So I'm not sure if she's
Well, my
washing
wife's
it or not.
pretty picky about that, but when I do it, it
Pull it
doesn't
out of
get
the
washed.
fridge and-
Yeah.
Go to town.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
no, I think that's all about that I had for I mean, I think Don has a bunch of.
Yeah, I want to.
Yeah.
He wants to instruct you guys on something, but
Something I wouldn't mind adding real quick
No,
is
yeah, go
that
ahead.
I think like as people are getting older,
Mm-hmm.
like you actually require more protein. And I just found this out and experienced it firsthand that after the age of 30, you know, for men at least, I'm not sure about women, but for men, like you start to lose 0.5% to 1% of your muscle mass annually if you're not doing anything to counteract it. And, you know, from my personal experience, by the time I noticed that, I think it's pretty accurate.
You're behind
But,
the eight ball a little, right?
Yeah,
Like you feel it.
So
Yeah,
now you're
I
playing
know.
catch up.
yeah,
But by prioritizing your protein, and then especially a meat-based protein, I think you can prevent that and at least slow that to a degree, you know, without actually even have to put any effort into the gym. Now, if you're going to the gym and you're exercising and you're prioritizing your protein in addition to that, well, then it's just going to compound the benefits. But prioritizing your protein, especially as you age, is going to help keep you healthier, feeling better, stronger. Like it's all good things to consider.
yeah,
So, and then the quality of your protein is just as important.
yeah, yeah.
Yep. No
Yeah.
tofu.
I'm
Yeah.
No, I definitely learned a lot, and hopefully other people, you know, that are watching or do watch us, that helps them, and I'm sure it will beneficial for everybody to listen to what you guys had to say. So
Yeah, appreciate it. It was fun
Yeah.
visiting.
Thanks for having us.
yeah, thanks for coming on. And this
We gotta see what he has to ask us.
Oh, yeah.
I wanna
yeah,
hear.
we'll turn this off. Well, maybe I'll leave the live stream on, but
Yeah.
And then I forgot at this episode is being sponsored by Valley Brothers.
Okay.
So
Cool.
if you guys need any farm equipment welded, implements built, give them a call, Valley Bros. They're on Instagram, Facebook, right? And I don't know about YouTube, but they're on Instagram and Facebook. Look them up, Valley Bros. All right, thank you guys for coming on.